Louis Carl,
Here.
George Micka,
Here.
John Wiener,
Here.
Michael Stark.
Here. Any public comments? Okay, approval of agenda.
I make a motion to approve the.
Okay, approval of zoning and land committee meetings from November 17th. Any questions?
Meeting minutes from November 17, second.
Permits. Any permits?
All right, so in the packet, I have attached November and December 2022. As you can see, it's slowed down a little bit here now that it's the winter months, but we did bring in a little over $4,000 in November. And then in December, almost $2,000. Does anybody have any questions at all? Comments? I would say this is very comparable to the past. Any comments? No, I think we're staying pretty consistent.
Issued revenue account?
So the issued revenue account would be that $4,000 and the $2,000 that we brought into the county.
You need to prove that or no?
I don't think
No,
so.
okay.
Well, I think Bruce is out collecting, building permits and trailers. He's right around and now I start looking at it, almost every other yard I got one.
Yeah,
On the RV you talking? What are you talking, the RV trailer?
Yeah, the regular little trailers, pull behinds and. We
Only-
were talking about that.
yeah.
last time, we were gonna start charging them.
But the only thing is, the way that is read, it's for, we can only charge a permit if it's on a 40 that's not undeveloped. So it's like if they're setting it up as a camper or like a hunting cabin, or if it's in their yard, of course, we can't.
We don't want people.
No.
in their yard.
No, not if it's in their
When
yard.
they take it out,
Yep.
then you follow. 'em.
Then you get 'em. So yeah, they can park in their
GPS,
yard.
that's why we got GPS.
Yep.
I make a motion, we accept the account. I'll second. Thanks, Stark.
okay, other business.
Okay, I could just give you a little update on the Hudson Bay Dam.
Oh,
We did get an answer back from a lawyer here that it'd be Claire Ulatell's lawyer. And it sounds like they are willing to work with us on an easement going down her driveway. Yeah. So the how, just the way I understand this is that we're good with using her driveway up to the cabin site. And then there's a short distance from there down to the river that she wants us to make our own. She don't want us to wipe it out right between her house, her cabin and the river. She wants us to make a little different route, I guess. So the plan is we will have them ribbon where they want it to go. And then we'll have Matt Erickson with the Highway Commission go down there and see that we can make a driveway in there, that it's acceptable.
Are we thinking of making that driveway right away or?
No, like I was talking to Matt, we'd at least have to wait till the snow is gone so he can see what he's dealing with. And then we have to get an easement written up.
We get an easement, are we gonna put a road in? What for?
Oh, just the access road, just from her cabin to the river. It'd be just,
Short distance. from
Yep.
the lake.
and it'd just be for access for the equipment.
What you gotta do? What's the next process after that happens?
Well, once we get, first of all, if we can get that, once we get a survey done, so we know exactly where it's gonna be, we'll get the easement written up. And then the next project will be to get Matt Erickson in there. Make this driveway at least wide enough for whatever heavy equipment he's gotta get in there. And we'll have to go back to that Jacob DNR where he wanted, I think there's a couple of cracks in the concrete they want fixed, and they want a catwalk put on that dam. So they gotta get equipment right up to the dam.
They want, who wants the catwalk?
I don't know if that's for safety or what the reason the catwalk is. I don't know. I do see it's in the DNR's note, so.
Ain't got nothing else to do. What is the future then? Actually, you're gonna get things there and you're gonna have things checked out, and if we have to do something, you're gonna do something, or what?
Yeah, according to the DNR, we own that.
That money's coming from Ashland County?
I think we have a plan here. Dan can give us.
No, the residents on Spider Lake will be all special assessed. For the entire, all the expenses related to it. So Max Lindsay's expenses to deal with this, then the surveyor, then Max again for the creating the easement, the construction. That's all gonna be special assessed to the residents on that lake.
Was there anything in her letter from the lawyer? Didn't she say she didn't want to be special assessed?
She did, I talked to her, I'm friends with her, and so
Yeah.
I did talk to her, and I did actually, I'm the one that actually talked her into smoothly letting us go in there and do some work, and then she said something about from the house down to the lake that she would want that really nice and cleaned out for us. But I did talk to her because I am the one that actually am talking to her, and she didn't want to give us one.
Right.
But then, after explaining to her that, the Lake District, and then that there was hundreds of people involved with this whole system, she agreed to do it. But otherwise, yes, I do know her very well.
Okay.
I think they ought to knock it out and then make the
Yeah,
Spider Lake people build one 3 times as big.
yeah. I said they had to make a power dam there, then that way they can power themselves out.
Exactly. Everybody's going solar and everything. Why don't you do it on a hydroelectric? power
Well, so
plant?
no. Anyway, I'm really pleased that this has been going on for years now. And I'm pleased that we do have a start on it.
Well,
You know, cause
DNR,
I actually gave up on it, so.
we were told 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah.
if we don't, they're
Yeah.
gonna come in and tax the heck out of us or do it, and we're gonna get the bill
And then
anyway.
it's been a disaster where, no, it went to DNR, it's been quite a process.
So how
Quite
does
a
the special assessment work? Every time something happens, you assess them, or is it just?
No. No, because it's a dam, we're allowed to special assess it. So yeah, what happens is the costs are divided up based on footage they have on the lake. And then the costs are just spread out to everybody on their taxes. And so they end up paying for it.
So when you say the cost, you mean if we have to do something to it, or is it there a yearly?
No, it's just when we have to do something.
oh, we have to-
So like, 10 years from now, if we have to go and inspect it and the DNR says, well, there's a couple more cracks to fill, then we'd have to special assess them for that construction work.
So will the road going in, not this a big distance, but will that be special assessed?
Yeah, the cost of the highway department will be. Now, my understanding is that it just needs a little bit of brushing. And so it's not really gonna be too much work. The only problem we might have is, are there big rocks there that would be bad for the machinery that have to be removed? Or is a terrain not suitable for a truck to get through and doesn't have to be fixed?
Right.
But it's gonna be a dirt road, so it's
I'll
not,
tell you what, I did take a look at it. Me and Matt Erickson walked down there last fall. The driveway going in doesn't have to be anything but brush, like Dan said, just so they can taking your mirrors off the trucks. But once we get to our cabin, there's another maybe 150 feet to the river. And it gets a little rough there. There's outcropping of boulders and there's little ravines. It'll take a little work to get a machinery down there.
Well,
So
just put it on the internet, there's some women will say, we'll take them rocks.
they won't be moving these rocks. So anyway, hopefully if this goes forward like we're hoping it will, as soon as the snow melts, we'll get a plan there in place. Hopefully get an easement written up. And talk to Matt and see if we can get something rolling here as soon as it dries up in the summer.
Okay, so we can't do anything until we get the easement.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is there any way that you can tax these people more for any reasons?
I'm sorry?
Is there any way that you can tax the people on these lakes, for certain reasons,
Just for
for an extra?
just for this kind of thing. So if there's work we have to do by their property that they're affected by, we can special assess. It's sort of like the city can special assess you when they're resurfacing the road. They can special assess residents for curb and gutter and sidewalk. So this is the same principle. We're doing work there so we can special assess for that project only.
Because I know the original plans that everybody on the whole lake was just gonna donate $200 apiece to accumulate for the expenses, but
Yeah, we can't really do it that way.
no.
No, I mean, if they could certainly set up a fund and then give that back to people to pay taxes. if they want.
And we don't wanna get too exotic, because then you'll have the island who want us to build a bridge.
The reason I say it, because everybody in Spur Lake are all millionaires, so,
Plus, that would create a nightmare for Jen, trying to keep track of it all.
okay.
Okay, well, let's hope we get the easement and everything goes smooth. Okay, moving to the land description. Public comments. Any public comments? Results of land sale.
Okay, so we just wrapped up our land sale yesterday morning.
28,000 on that, we should be able to direct this thing.
Have an extra meeting anyway.
Yeah, we just finished up our land sale that had been going on for about a month and a half now. All the properties, we ended up turning a profit on. And all of them, pretty much all of them, the high bid was over what our starting bid price was. So that was good.
Yeah, I was watching that one, we were going back and forth with that one in Peaksville. And got for 29,000. It's about a mile from my house at the most. And apparently whoever this person is, I can't pronounce the name.
Yeah, apparently it
Hopefully
was
they're
worth that
happy.
much to them. So, yeah, if there aren't any other questions or comments, I would just need a motion to accept all of the high bid amounts.
I'll make the motion to
How
accept
many
it.
descriptions did you put out there?
Just,
Three
just the
different
ones that you see on the sheet.
So we got a bid on every one of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Was there a motion made?
I'll make the motion to accept the bids.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion, property subject to tax deed.
I don't have too many specific updates, with this list, just that, my payment plan folks are making their payments. Now that, tax time is kind of over and things have slowed down in my office, I'm gonna get on doing the recording that tax deed for the Flambeau River Papers property.
So on these, we have several of them that are still up to date or really close on payments, right?
Yep. Yep, I've got quite a few, like the people that are still left over on this list, most of them are making payment plan or are making consistent payments or they're or we're just kind of waiting until the date comes up where we can take a tax deed.
This, one with Al Van Camp, what is that all involved? That just a little corner piece of property or something, or?
Which property?
The bottom one on page number 1,
Al Van Camp, I know the guy, really good.
says he doesn't want it.
Yeah, he had called us when we first sent out our
Must be a piece of property.
our
where nobody
papers.
gets it or anything, or why would he just? do
Yeah,
it?
well, when we first sent out our papers, he actually called us. He wouldn't accept the letters, but he did call us and told us that he knew what they were for and that he didn't want the properties and he wanted us to just take them. So,
So these aren't ones we're gonna take right now, right?
we're just waiting for
Right.
these ones, correct?
Okay.
All the payment plans seem to be going pretty good then?
Yes. But otherwise, I don't need any motions. But if you have any other questions, I'll answer them.
Jen, can you remind them of the new state statutes
As far as,
as far as county getting profit for these?
oh, yes.
Just so they all are well aware
Yep.
of how things are gonna move in the
Yep.
forward.
So last year, Act 216 passed, which changed the way, or it changed how counties have to sell the property or how they deal with the profit from land sales. So basically changing from, any profit over our expenses and taxes, we would be able to keep that. Now going forward, we have to try for 5 years to get that back to the former owner. No matter if it's a house or vacant land. So that will change going forward.
Question for you. Does Ashland County insure every one of these properties
On that list,
on any property?
we insure properties we take on tax deed if there is a structure on it. If it's vacant land, we don't hold insurance on it.
So that new law, if we take this land in taxes,
Mhm.
and then once we sell it, we have to give back if we get over a profit?
Yeah.
When it's ours, we have to give it back. That don't make a lot of sense to me, but okay.
Yeah, it used to be in the past where we'd only have to give back the profit if it was their homestead within the last 5 years, and if we received like a signed affidavit back that they wanted the profit. Now we just have to try for 5 years to give them the money. And if we can't get it to them within those 5 years, then we can keep it.
So like on this first one on this, where we took it, we have to put that money in a separate account and try to find the owner and give it back to them?
Yeah, so in the future, we'll have to do that. I don't believe that affects these properties because in the act, it said it first applies to tax deeds acquired on the effective date of this subsection. And the effective date is the day after its publication. It was published on April 1st, 2022. So these properties the tax deed was taken before April 2nd of 2022. So I'll double check with Dan and probably with Max as well that I'm reading this correctly, that we can keep this profit. But yes, in the future, this 29,000, we'd be able to keep, the $300 of expenses and taxes to make us whole. But we would have to get the rest of that profit to we'd have to try to find the former owner, contact them, and then give that money to them.
Good way to sell your land, I guess.
Yeah,
You don't do any work and you get the profit.
yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be a lot of work to keep track of all of that and
Yeah,
to just make sure that we're doing everything absolutely correctly,
right.
so.
Yeah, on these that are the tax, notices or, the 3 pages, or
Mhm.
5 pages. Do we know what these properties are worth? Like the guy that doesn't want the Alvin Van Camp, he owes $52.90. What's the property worth?
I would have to double check, but I would imagine those properties are, if I remember right, his were just very small little pieces, probably not more than a couple $100, maybe a couple thousand.
But we don't know on this sheet.
No, I don't have it listed on
Oh,
this sheet. I can get that information if you'd like it.
So in a sense, we're becoming a realtor for them people.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Anything else in this? Okay, other business, next meeting date.
I got one thing I would like to address, George here, our last meeting was kind of had the ideas of some, coming up with some kind of a climate change. I was wondering maybe if we could get maybe somebody to give us a presentation on some of this stuff, through the board, maybe through us, so that we could get something going on the climate change.
Yeah, Ag and Extension is working on that. So Alyssa Radke at the Extension Office is putting together a plan and a working group to address that. So it came up to, the creation of a committee came up to the exec committee back in November, was it? And then it got referred to Ag and Extension to work on. So I can ask Alyssa to make a presentation to this committee, if you'd like.
Great, I'm glad to see something going on.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta always remember, there's a difference between climate change and global warming. Climate change happens to, we talk about climate change is because of global warming, because of, I remember the 60s when I was a kid, we had 40, 50 below in the winter time and 100 degrees in the summer and droughts. I mean, that's 60 years ago, and we had them. When we, and the
I was thinking
fuel,
could
everything
be-
wasn't there yet.
if we could get, a presentation to inform us all a little bit more about the system,
Well, I think when we had that, last meeting and this gal that, from Monroe County, I think, put it together and, until we get a committee and they start looking into what do we want to look at?
That's what I mean.
She give us 20 different scenarios, but no, well, the fossil fuel is doing it. No, she gave us scenarios of what's happening. She didn't tell us why it's happening or what the philosophy was. She just says what the last 10, 20, 40 years has done and what it has, more rain. Well, I use that example. 2016, we had a foot of rain up here. Well, we were pretty much the only ones that got hit with that. 37, it washed everything out. 1937? That's 80 years ago. And it washed all our bridges out. A lot of them roads were never opened again. Well, that's not global warming. That's climate change. And is that gonna come back? We're getting the environmentalists saying it's gonna happen more often. Okay, I'm gonna argue it, but, who says, like this dam. I said it a dozen times. Why, the town could take it over, you people could take it over, it's never gonna go out. Well, how do you know? Well, put your $100 bill on there and tell me when it's gonna go out.
Yeah, and Mr. Weeder, there are things that we can do regardless of whether one subscribes to global warming theory or not. We do know that we're getting more severe rain events. Like 2016 is a good example. So when we build roads, like when we resurface all of our roads, we can build bigger culverts to handle more water. That's just a prudent thing to do because we don't know when those big rain events are going to come. We could, but right now we have solar on our sheriff's department, our HHS building in here. That's something we can do just to mitigate expenses down the road, still contribute to going carbon neutral. We can encourage our farmers to engage in more sustainable practices, which benefits both them and everyone else. So there's things we can do that, whether or not it's global warming or climate change or whatever, there's still things we can do to help prevent damages in the future. And that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at, is how do we prepare ourselves for these larger events going down the road. We know if it gets warmer in the summer, there's going to be more algae in the lake. Well, that affects our tourism, that affects our fishing industry, that affects our HHS department with diseases. I mean, so there's a lot of things we can look at that may or may not be climate change related or global warming related, but at least there's still positive steps we can do to deal with these issues.
Well, once again, when you put a committee together, if you put a committee together, we would want that first or second meeting to be brought up so people can voice, what do you want to see? On the climate, what are we looking at? Are we looking at putting bigger buildings up, stronger buildings, because we're gonna have a lot more snow and they're gonna start, I mean, otherwise you can, there's no rhyme or reason for it. And I'm not against it because, I mean, we're in northern Wisconsin. You'd think that Madison and Milwaukee would be big on this because they're moving 10 times the snow, or they're getting, will it be a bad thing? No, I don't think it's gonna be a bad thing, but it's like, and 1996, then Secretary George Myers put together, the people up in the north were hollering about this and that and the other thing. So he's come up here and he put a committee together. And it was called the Lake Superior Advisory Team. We had 40 members. We had Murphy Oil, we had the counties, we had 5 years later, there was only 10 of us. And what we said is we want less mercury in the lake. And legislation turned around and said, okay, no more mercury, no more. We're going to continue to put what we're putting in, but no more. Okay. I mean, it was a plus, but it didn't prove a lot of stuff. And this is where I'm going with this. We want to talk about it. It's a good thing. Let's talk about it. But what do we want to see come out of this climate? What do we want to see? We want to see that we should build buildings better. We should be living in basement. I don't know. And I think that's the first 6 months to a year that we need to, we have a comprehensive plan. And this comprehensive plan would coincide with this climate change. When we put that together a dozen years ago, we got a $265,000 grant to do that. A lot of counties said, go blow your nose, state, we're not gonna do it, and they didn't do nothing about it. We spent our 265, and now 4 years ago, we revised it. It's a plan, it's a working plan. Can we put this into it? Yes, that's where this should be. It should be part of the comprehensive plan. The future, and it can be changed at any time. That's the fun part of a plan. You can change it by, county board approval vote. You can change what you put in this. And we've said that, I was on that both times because the extension took care of it. But, we just really don't use that comprehensive plan, and this would be a footnote in there. So and we've asked to have this committee kind of visit the departments Now, I know our administrator does, and I'm sure, Dick does, but all we wanted to do is to go to the department, this department, and say, did you look at it? Yep. Can we improve it? Can you do the things that are in that comprehensive plan? No, well, then let's change it. What can you do? And we've never done that in 15 years. It's a, almost not. LCC does it, the Land Conservation Department does, because nutrient management is in there, and that's a law. We have, farmland preservation in there, and we use it because some of the farmers use it. So it's there, and that's one of the few departments that actually use that. But it's a plan. It doesn't have to be rock solid.
And that's the direction Lissa is going and extension is going, to do some sort of climate resilience or whatever term we want to use. To make, this is pre-work for redoing the comp plan. And then the climate resilience stuff would get into the comp plan at that point. So that's the direction we're headed, actually.
I just know that if we're making an attempt for climate change, so if that gets out to the public, at least the public knows, a lot of people are gonna love that. So, and another one was on the carbon credits. I've been reading up a little bit about carbon credits, and carbon credits are stored mostly in your big timber, and all of our big timber is being cut down, you know, and so.
Well, and we did sign a carbon credits deal last year. So we will actually get revenue for keeping timber in our county forest. Well, we're still allowed to log it for, and that's mostly for forest management reasons. We will get credit for our county forest. So that's another aspect we're looking at too. And Mr. Weiner, there is a, I can forward you the website, but the state has did a gigantic report on climate change. Came out a year or two ago. I can send you the link for that.
Yeah, you know, and you bring up carbon, credits. We never had a carbon problem up until the farmers start working their ground up. And like you said, all the big trees that contain this carbon are cut down. So your young ones don't do that. I got a kid, my oldest boy was our grazing specialist, and he's all organic grass-fed beef. He says, Dad, we've never had a problem because if you leave ground alone, it will absorb the carbons. It'll pull them out of the air. That's why through history and time, he says, when we open this ground up and we release these carbons, he says, no, the ground will take them. Are you gonna turn all these millions of acres into a no-till in it? No, it's like you're throwing darts at a picture, but the picture ain't there. It's not gonna happen. And Bruce, you're from a farm community, you know what I'm talking about. These guys, they're trying to make a living. They're gonna turn that ground over and they're gonna release them carbons. I'm sorry. So when you get carbon, so when the state comes in or the feds come in and they say, well, you're gonna get carbon credits, what do those credits look like? Well, you gotta leave the land dormant for 3 years and it'll start to pull those carbons back in. But when you're trying to feed 350 million people, it ain't gonna happen, I'm sorry. So you can go back to your climate change once again and say, what do we want in our climate? What are we looking at? That's the first thing you gotta look at is what are we looking at? And can we achieve it? And then how can we achieve it?
One thing about it, it's a start though.
Well, we already goofed up the, you know, so we started a long time ago. To reverse it, that's fine. But that's just like our administration, and I hate going on with it, but as long as you're talking about it, we have an administration that wants to go solar. That's fantastic, but they're not doing nothing so people will go solar. that is, you know, yeah, you see them pop up here and there and that, but I read an article years ago that if you had a 300-mile square solar, you could run the whole country electricity on that. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but we're not, there's your climate change. You know, let's start harvesting the sun. Let's start harvesting the geothermal. The ground is always 58 degrees. I mean, the geothermal is a fantastic. Government gonna give you a break on it? Heck no. And that's where it's gotta come from. And until they do that, you know, you're throwing darts in the wind.
There's actually, as part of the legislation Congress passed last year, there's actually credits in there for solar panels and heat pumps. And there's also a credit for electric vehicles. So there, I mean, the federal government is addressing the issue, maybe not as well as we'd like it. But they are doing some things. And I know eventually we'll be getting electric charging stations here too. The big issue for us right now is our state legislature and how are they allowed to charge for the electricity. Currently, if a Quick Trip went in, they'd become an energy company, and that creates a whole bunch of hurdles. So I expect this spring, the state legislature will address that issue and make electric more available. But there are, I mean, the progress is slow, and maybe for some people it's too fast, but for some people it's too slow. But things are happening.
I really appreciate we talking about these two subjects, so, thank you.
Okay, set the next meeting date? Do we need one in February or?
Slow and hard.
Right.
No, I don't need one in February.
How about March 8th? Does that work?
Yes.
Yeah.
February 30th would work for me.
You'll be there.
Just so everybody know, oh no, never mind. Yeah, but just so everybody knows, February 7th is county board. So you can put that on your calendar.
You got a county board meeting in February?
February 7th,
7?
7th. Yep, so you guys know.
Yeah. Okay. March 8th. Adjourn the meeting. Do we need a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn? George, I'll second.
Yeah.